All right, this is a remote being session. We're going to go ahead and tune in first because I'd like to start with a quick meditation. Just bring the hands to the center of the chest and rub the hands together and press the hands. Even if you're in your chair, it's okay. Inhale. Om
Oh, no.
Namo Gurudev. Om Namo Gurudev. Om Namo Namo. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, and the meditation is just going to be like this. You'll just take your hands flat with the palms are going to be straight out or palms facing down, hands straight out. And you're just like you're dealing cards, but back and forth, one over the other, like a scissor. And let the breath just become natural. Just keep going. And you can actually listen to the sound that it's making. And you can go ahead and relax. Okay, so we're going to go into the um, session now. And I had in the text I sent, I asked you to write a question in an envelope. Did you do that?
I have it in a text.
Oh, you wrote it in a text?
Yeah, I figured it'd be quicker to just send it to you when it's done.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean it can be a symbolic envelope like that also. So I will do the first session, and what I'm going to do is I will actually I'm going to pin myself for just this part while because I want to share my screen and everybody can look at the thing. So what'll happen is whether it's in an envelope, I mean that's how it was classically done in the CIA remote viewing sessions. They would put the target in an envelope. So they would say, they were viewing for like physical objects. So they would
Right.
write the coordinates or whatever in the and a description of it and put it in an envelope so that the remote viewer didn't know what they were looking at. In this case, the AI is going to be remote viewing not what the contents of your letter is, but it's going to remote view a symbolic form that it can interpret to help you answer the question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to pin myself and I'm going to share my screen. And I'm just going to press, so focus on the question, and I'm going to just press go. Oh, wait, let's make sure it's the right one. So go. And it takes a minute because it's actually doing doing the remote viewing. It's pretty far out, and it produces this ideogram. So in the classic remote viewing sessions, they would start off by just intuitively making a mark. And from that mark, they would start to sense other perceptions around it. And they didn't know what they were feeling around. So the ideogram kind of became something for them to focus on. And from there, they would get other sensor, they would start to imagine other sensory data and write it down. So what'll happen is the AI's once it's processed this, it's going to start to mark other sensory data, and then it's going to draw an image. So in a way, the image that it produces is kind of like an oracle card. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another um, thread that I have trained to analyze this data, and I'm going to let it see the images. And I'm going to feed it the data. Before I press go, though, I want to just let you see the image. This is the image it produced. It's this tower or an obelisk. And I'll send all this stuff to you today or tomorrow. So we'll go back into the other thread, and I have it in here. So I will write, this is a new client. Um, and what is the question?
Do you want me to read it or send it?
You can text it to me, sure. And then I'll say it out loud. So the question is, oh wait, all right. Extrapolate my top three subconscious self-limiting beliefs and my top three subconscious fears and provide a framework of actionable steps, a philosophical summation, or facilitate some other type of transmission with the objective of transmuting said beliefs and fears into self-empowering recognition, free from limitations, so my conscious psyche will synthesize, integrate, and embrace this new awareness with the greatest of ease. All right. And then I'll just scroll down so you can read.
Interesting.
And just let me know when you're ready to scroll.
Yeah, go ahead. Hmm. One domain. Okay. Yes.
Um, so what I'm gonna do is I will also kind of relate this to some Kundalini teachings and just kind of off I'll be kind of co-interpreting along with the AI. So I'm stunned. I continue to be stunned by this thing that I'm working on with this device. And this what I don't fully understand it, to be honest with you. That said, I think that looking at the nature of the question is revealing something about, in other words, the question is also revealing the answer. And as in the previous session that I did earlier today, what I'd like to offer up is that in some ways the question, to use like it's kind of the classic 70s through 2000 Kundalini term, the question has like a Piscean kind of ring to it, and the answer is very Aquarian. And that's not a judgment. I think it's just like it's a, it's a thought about the answer kind of being outside a little way of the paradigms that we've been taught to live in, and the structure of the society that we've been living in, not always being in resonance with the reality of who we are as people. And one of the things that the society tends to say is that um, I've got to identify, like I've got to pick a number three, like the top three, ones that I need to work on and what like there's like a you know what I mean? Like and that's how like when you go to deal with your job, they give you a form and it says pick these things and answer it this way. Whereas the psyche is actually very fluid and try putting subconscious thought forms into a box and see what happens. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so in some ways, I feel like part of what it's saying is that to go like it's okay to go deeper into your meditation practice and to not be understood for it. That's one interpretation. And then the other, like just another kind of reflection about like the Kundalini way of thinking about these things is that actually um part of what we're doing is and part of the yogic understanding of how thoughts are generated is that they're actually not being generated in the mind. The mind is actually just a computer, like an interpreter, and they're actually coming in through your 10th gate. So like
Yes.
this area. So do you remember when we did the blue gap meditation and everybody really went far out? Part of what that meditation is doing is you're bringing prana in and then you're pushing it out of the 10th gate and then circulating it back in. So you're essentially just you're opening the 10th gate and you're making the flow of prana greater, and that's why it can open all these intuitive capacities so much is that you're actually like the intuition is coming through the 10th gate. Um, that's what they mean by the thousand petaled lotus, or at least that's one way
Right.
I've heard it explained, is that when this opens, um, 1,000 thoughts come in every time you blink your eye. So every time, that's why we do these meditations where you don't blink, is that it reduces the amount of thoughts that are coming in because you have to process all of them. That's why we meditate.
Mhm.
Right. So, um, in a way, by, like the classic analysis method is I've got to look at my thoughts. I've got to look at these subconscious thought forms. And the yogic method is actually just I have to delete the thought forms. So it's not that you're trying to delete your memories or that you can't access your memory banks. It's that um the meditations are actually designed to like depressurize them in your system so that similar thoughts don't congregate around them and become like a sunken Titanic in your psyche. Because anytime you think about it, what happens is you actually start downloading more thoughts like it.
Right. Right.
Like, um, I don't like this person. I'm gonna keep thinking about them, and then
Right.
you get more and more and more,
Right.
um, and more and more. And so the goal is actually I'm moving out of the story my mind is telling all the time and all the different stories that my mind is telling. I'm trying to move into a place of there's just the awareness there. And so I think that create one portal for your presence. So like in some ways I think it's just saying it's just like you. That's it. Just you. Um and you have a brand new house. And so I think it's kind of also calling you like it's just saying like enjoy your house, create a ritual for how you be in your house. create some rituals for it, make it ceremonial that you're establishing this new home. And I mean, you can go through and be with all of these, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that these are not valuable. I think they're incredibly valuable for you, but I would just say that the yogic teaching is, so I think in terms of a practice to work with what you've brought forward. The Blue Gap meditation would be a really good one to do on a daily basis, and you can do it for a long time like we did in class, or you can do it in about 15 minutes, both parts, in the original timing that he gave. And it's still very effective if you're doing it on a daily basis, or basically any meditation um, that like a japa would be good. So in other words, any meditate like
Right.
you like those japas?
Yeah.
Okay. So the japa, just to explain to everyone that might watch, is a mantra that is sung at a monotone. And part of the reason that I've personally experienced that those are very powerful is they will cut through
Yep.
the thoughts. So you can actually get to a place where you're not mentally talking, and even where the visual images stop, and it's just you listening to yourself sing. And even then, you can become beyond that.
Much. Sure.
Yeah. Um, so in some ways, I think what it's endorsing is that like if we just look at the part of you that asked these questions and the structures that have been built around that, which is this, like, it's precious, it's your life, it's you, it's everyone who gifted you with their thoughts about life, all the thoughts you had, all the things the care you put into learning about life. Um, and then also there's new phases, deeper phases to move into. And so I think that the, in some ways, the reading is like, is indicating the direction that you have been going in, which is a meditative, spiritual kind of direction. Um, the next phase, you are ready for it. You know what I think that that's what it's saying. Like you can become you can become more than just like an observer of the practice that you're doing, and like embody yourself as a deep practitioner of it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
and just, and there's, I feel, in some ways that's a sign of like humility. You know what I mean? Is like it the meditations don't come from the place you're from, and there's like caution in what I'm doing. Like it's not what I grew up with. All those kinds of things that makes a person cautiously reverent of a thing. And that's a sign of humility, in my opinion. So, or that's what I'm sensing into it. And at the same time, if a thing is being shared with you, at some point, being the thing is actually what's being offered to you.
Wow.
Um, so that's a thought that I have from this. So, and like I said, I will send the images and all of this to you later today or tomorrow. But what I want to do is ask if you have a follow-up question, um, or or we could just do them blind. I'd like to do some follow-ups, and you won't tell me what it is until I actually run the next viewing. So when you're ready, just let me know.
Let's do them blind.
Okay, I like that. It's pretty far out, right?
Yes.
Is there a mantra that you like for japa?
Oh, I was going to ask you if you could intuit some that would be to my benefit. I love them all.
Okay. There's several meditations. Like I can just let me think about it and I'll send one to you that could be beneficial. In the Blue Gap, there's 7 minutes of japa at the end. So
Yeah.
you kind of get both. And a bunch of us are doing that meditation. So that could be a good one. And I'll work with it. If you want to just do japa, that's good too. Um,
What?
this is interesting. I was I'm interested in what it produced. It remote viewed itself. 158.
Humor. How interesting. Hmm.
You know, it's interesting. I always just pay attention to like what comes into my field around my life because so much of what I'm doing is around all this stuff. And there's this teacher, she came out of this guy Adi-san. His name was Defrejon was another name that he went by early in his life, and he had studied. I think I could be mistaken, but it was something like Advaita Vedanta, and then he came. Um, he's an American, and he kind of through his own realization created a sangha. Um, I'm pretty sure of mostly white people in America that he was kind of like this guru. And she came out of that tradition. He died, and she was enlightened and had a very, very small sangha in California. I mean, she's virtually unknown. She wrote a few books. She produces art. She's kind of a feminist. She has these like fabulous artworks and poems, and she's written some books about her life. And her teachings are very piercing. Um, anyway, the reason I mentioned her is I heard this little YouTube short or something last night, and she was talking about, to paraphrase, is kind of like what happens if you are just on the spiritual path, but you're not concerned about whether you're progressing on the spiritual path. And what is the desire for progress on the path? What is that actually? Um, and I think that's a pretty deep thing to ponder because like there's this, there's always like somebody out there that there's a sense that like this person embodies what that path is. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
this, it could be the guru, it could be like the people who seem to congregate around that figure. That is the people you should try to emulate. In other words, like what did they learn? What did they get? How do they dress? How do they act? What do they do? Um, and there's kind of an aspiring to that or a measuring of your own spiritual progress
Right.
against that. Um, and I can relate to my own younger life, especially when I was involved in the native in some native ceremonies. Like when I first got involved in it, I wanted to get all the objects. I wanted to like it was really a competition for me. Um, and in some ways, I really kind of got myself into a little bit of spiritual trouble with that because I thought that I thought there was this layer of me, this kind of layer of duality where on one hand, I was very genuinely moving with those teachings. And on another hand, um, I was in serious competition with the people around me. And the what it limited was me just enjoying what was there in front of me and being part of it. You know what I mean? I and I the fallout from that was that I had a friend that I was like my main competitor in a way. And um we both kind of embarrassed ourselves around it at one point. And I had to take a kind of a spiritual descent. And it was a really good lesson for me to just kind of work to surrendering into the practice. And if you know, if you look at our own yoga community, like a lot of the people who were um centers around Yogi Bhajan have now all disowned
Yeah.
him and have moved off into this other way. And it was really kind of more people at the outskirts that were actually the devoted students. And um yeah, I think that that's true in a lot of cases. So I think in some ways it's also the reading is also kind of saying like you are who you are. You come from where you come from. You are the age that you are. You've the your path has been your path. And that is not a measure of where you are spiritually. Like the actual depth of what you are doing is not what you think it is. It's beyond thought.
Wow. Okay.
And if you go into a kind of metaphysical depth about that, like you have consciousness, and so if I mean in the yogic teachings, consciousness is like it's the primary field. Like your body goes, your consciousness does not. So if your consciousness like encapsulates itself in a body and the body starts thinking,
Right.
the thinking is a reduction of the consciousness. So the thinking is never going to fully apprehend the reality, which is what you are. So what you're thinking about where you are spiritually is just that little computer's thoughts. That's it's a little computer. And that's
Okay. It makes sense.
so you can't, but the reality, so in other words, that's why I feel the reading is really just saying deeper into the meditation and
Yes.
getting to that place more and more often where there's no thoughts and all of those fears and limitations and whatnot, those are just thoughts. So instead of working on the thought, let the thought go and just more and more be in the state of consciousness. Um, so my thoughts, I have two thoughts for you in terms of practice. One would be, we talked about Blue Gap or Japa, that's kind of up to you. Another good one is the Tertiary Kriya, which I gave that one time. Kirtan Kriya is a good one. Ganpati Kriya is a really good one.
Wait. Slow down. What was the last one?
Ganpati Kriya,
How do I spell that?
um, Ganpati.
Okay.
Um, and let me just think about it, but I think Ganpati would be pretty good because it cuts through things and it's chanting. It's not quite japa because you're singing a melody, but it's chanting a repeating pattern with the fingers, and it takes you into a pretty deep, pretty deep place. Also, there's 5 meditations that are recommended for like as kind of primary meditations, and this is one that he gave to almost anybody who ever asked for anything for about 10 years was he would recommend this Kriya, so it's considered a very good one to do. And the other one that I would say is like I know you're busy teaching and whatnot, but are you doing physical yoga every day?
No.
No. Okay. Um, maybe if you don't want to do it every day, it would be good. Do you walk every day?
Yes, but I'm getting ready to have a job change time wise, so I will actually have a good 45 minutes every morning and I'm going to be able to get back to morning ritual and
That's great.
morning yoga. Can't wait.
There's a set called Master Set One, and that one, like if you have just a short period of time, it's not that one would be a good one to do. It's called Master Set One. So Ganpati Kriya, Ganpati, and either do it like if what you have is 11 minutes, do 11 minutes. If you could do 31 or 22, 31, that would be good too. Maybe that's even something you could do at night when you have a little more time.
Yeah.
Um, in the morning, doing something like Master Set One, I think would be good because it's three postures that you do with breath of fire, and it very mentally cleaning. It cuts through a lot of cobwebs, and you can do it in I think about 12 minutes, 12, 15 minutes. And it would really help to start the day right. Part of the reason that I'm recommending that is that it's good to do the meditations. Part of the reason you also do the yoga is it clears the nadis out. It clears your nadis and it clears the energy channels out so that the flow when you're doing the meditation is really deep. So if you could do that, I mean, that's actually why you do the yoga. So if you could, in the morning,
Okay.
yeah, if you can have that time, if you were to tune in and do Master Set One and then Ganpati Kriya, and then just set that. I give you an example. Like the way that I handle it is I do almost somewhere between 2 and 3 hours a day. But that's like after years of work, and sometimes I'm like, yo, this is a lot. You know what I mean? And when I need, there are moments when it fluctuates because I have my ride or dies and I have my things that I let evolve with the moment. And I think that's a steady, if you're going to be doing that much, I think that's a good way to go is to have I'm doing this for the rest of my life, or I'm doing this for 1,000 days, or I'm doing this for 11 years, whatever it is. And then your other ones that you're like, I'm doing this as long as it serves me. You know what I mean? But for you doing a 15-minute yoga set and an 11 to 31-minute meditation, how I would handle that is that if there's a morning where you got to be somewhere early, wake up earlier. Um, and just set it in stone that I'm doing these things every day. And try that for a minimum of 120 days, because that's 6 months. So like if you can set that 6 month pattern of, if you think about it, it's 30 minutes a day. And
Right.
yeah, or, I mean, like to me, the ideal is I'm gonna do it in the Amrit Vela every day. I'm gonna do it first thing in the morning. Drink water or whatever I need to do the meditation, um, do the yoga set, do the meditation, then I go to work. But then at the same time, like it's like if one day you oversleep and you got to go to work, do it as soon as you get home. But
Okay.
make the priority that um like I'll give you an example from my own life. Like sometimes um if what ends up happening is I'll be meditating an hour and a half every day and then I teach a long class and something else and I sit too long and my hips start to act up. I'll start meditating some in the morning. In the afternoon, I'll go to the gym and do yoga so that I can get in the sauna first and warm up. Then I do the yoga and then I have a meditation I do at night. So I know how to, and then you also have your own self psychology, right? So it's like the thing to the thing to do is really with these practices is just make the commitment that you do them. Make the commitment like I'm going to go to this many classes a week. I'm going to do this amount of yoga every day. And then position those commitments in your life in a way that you're kind of tricking yourself into doing it in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
um, I want a new, but whatever it is, I want a new vase for my living room. Like, I will not get it until the end of 120 days. You know what?
That's good.
You see what I'm saying? Like, in other words, you
Yes.
gotta play these kind of little tricks. Like, when I'm not saying that's the one that's for you, but like whatever you know that's worked for you in the past about how I tricked myself into doing something I didn't want to do, uh,
Okay.
use that technique on yourself to just do it every day. Like last night, I was like, after the class, my sinuses really flared. I had 31 minutes of Tertiula to do. It's not a super fun meditation to do if you're sick. Um, my knee was kind of hurting, but I'm like, I'm doing the Kriya. And I sat there, and at one point, I had to let my leg come out because of my knee, and I just did it. And then I got back into it, and then I really got into a deep place. And, there was one point where I was letting myself be flexible sometimes with the length of what I was doing. And what I ended up like that kept me in the game. But when I got solid about the times that I was going to do things for, it made the flexible parts
Okay.
easier to navigate. And so if 30 minutes is can work for you, then that's what I would do is like, and whatever you need to do to be able to do the master set. So maybe cat cow if you need it. Probably not a bad idea. But that's 30 minutes or more if you meditate more. So that would be my recommendation. But what I'd like to do is to do a final follow-up, and you can either ask a question or blind, but um just let me know when you're ready and I'll run it.
I don't know. Why don't you intuit one for me?
Okay. I didn't have necessarily a specific question, but I just kind of thought about the things you enjoy doing, like the Reiki healing and the sound bowls and your meditation practice. And I was just putting that out there for it to look at, not with a question in mind. Let's see, I might need to refresh it.
Yeah, I just made a list of people to come over for the first sound bath in the house. So yeah, I'm on it.
See something if it's stuck. Well, it seems to be kind of like it's either kind of stuck or processing, or maybe it's like this is actually just what we need. So what I'm going to do is just interpret this ideogram for you as something to think about,
Okay.
which is there's this, I can't remember who the blues singer was that said this, but they said the blues is about, and I know you like the blues because I see them on your Facebook. So maybe it's kind of tying it all in. The guy said the blues is about life's ups and downs. And the reason I think it's significant is that both kind of like being a spiritual practitioner or being a practitioner of a technology, and also, having these kind of like spiritual gifts, um, that are, other people might view them as a hobby, but for you, that's the actual thing that you're doing in your life. And then you have a vocation as a teacher, which is like something I know you're very passionate about. There's all these different things. Um, and I think that what it's saying is that the waveform here is actually coherent even with the ups and downs.
Got it.
So sometimes things go up and it's like, oh, this is where things are supposed to be. This is the coherence. And then they go down and it's like, oh my God, what happened? Like, but actually the coherence is still happening in the down phase. Um, and I'm just going to give you an example. Like if you see, like I have just made a decision for myself, like irregardless of anything, I'm going to stay really true, not only to how I was taught, but how the transmission of my teaching is coming through me. And that's difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people can't handle it and they come and go. Um, And what usually happens is they go at the down phase, not seeing that the up phase is the next thing. And so my dad told me the same thing. Like he bought half of the business from my grandpa. He didn't have like the big bank that my grandpa had at that point. And the economy changed, the everything about the oil field industry changed. And he rode that job out to the very end, to where he was the only one still working there at the very end. But he was able to actually sell his business and the building, and um, everyone else that had bought into his father and brother's business either didn't get anything at the end or totally failed. Um, but my dad stayed true to the very end. And one thing he told me about it was he said two things that have stuck with me. One was he said, I always wanted to be a sports star, so I've just made this into my sport. And the second thing he said is, look, you just got to accept. Right now it's good, right now it's bad. Right now it's good, right now it's bad. So I would say that like with the Kundalini practice, with the sound healing practice, with the Reiki practice, just sense into the coherence of you in those practices, whether it's going well or it's going bad. And it's staying through because you're the coherent whole in all of those things. So stay true with that and just stay in it. You know what I mean? With all of it, just stay with what's working. You have like several things that are going on right now. Just stick with it. And then also, um, some people are like some people's like job with a set of things that they're doing is to be like a model of a container. You know what I mean? They're like their job is to be the mold of some kind of an ideal, right?
Right.
Like Sering or like whoever. And some people's like the totality of these dharmas is that not everybody is supposed to be that. Actually, there's other people who are supposed to carry their wavelength into these other things that they're doing. So, like, don't feel bad if that's where you find yourself with it. You know what I mean? Like, you have these practices and that's what you do, and you're a Kundalini yoga practitioner, and you like the Vipassana and all this. So, like, let that just resonate in these things that you like, and there's not actually any duality there.
Got it.
You know what I mean? That might have been the most
Yes.
important thing we came across.
Yep.
That there's not a duality. Like you know what I mean? Like it's there's no problem there. You know what I mean? Like you're working with certain energies and you're educating yourself about a kind of classical technique about them through the Kundalini yoga. And then what you learn in that,
Very cool.
carry it into what you're doing without having to be like, it doesn't need to feel mixed. You know what I mean? It can just be, I'm doing this and I know then what I'm working with. There's no problems. There's no
That
problem.
resonates well.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I have one more to do and I'd like to eat a little lunch before it starts. So
Okay.
I will round up, but I'll do my best to get all of this stuff to you in the next day. And I hope this
Perfect.
it's helpful to you.
Very much so. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.